any questions about anything from yesterday or the polls or homework for this weekend or anything whatsoever before we dive back into the weather app?
It's still saying access is denied for the starter code.
Yes, I'm getting the same thing.
I refresh my screen and stuff. So.
Okay. Did I put the wrong link into the outline? Yeah, I most certainly did. Wow, I was off my game today. Share, copy link. Okay, if you close out of whatever link you were in and then try and click on that link again, the link should be updated. And I can actually just share my screen through that. So what we're good now. Okay, cool, thanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the starter code link and pop that open. And then there's going to be a little download icon in the top right. If you click that download button, it's going to download probably to your downloads folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that tab. I'm going to go to my Finder, my desktop, my code, my week 2, day 2. I'm going to create a new folder for day 4. Pop that open. Drag and drop my starter code into that folder. And then I'm going to rename this as index.html. Then I'm going to go to my VS Code. I'm going to, whatever window is open, you may want to close it. I'm going to close all my windows, and then I'm going to go to File, Open Folder. And that is not the monitor I wanted you to open on. Okay, let's try this again. File, Open Folder. And I'm going to go to my desktop, my code, my W2, my day 4. And I'm not going to pick index.html. I'm going to either double click on D4 or I can just hit the open button. And that's going to pop open my index.html. And I'm going to go live. And that's going to open up, hopefully, the file as we know and love it from yesterday. And then the other thing I'm going to do, and you don't have to follow along with me here yet. Okay. I am going to... I dropped the live share link in. So if you find it helpful to be able to access my code, you can go into Slack and go ahead and right-click on the link and hit copy link. And then go back into VS Code, say File, New Window. Go to our live share button. Scroll down to Join. And then if you get in the bottom right, sign in as anonymous. You can click on sign in as anonymous. You can hit enter on your name. Go ahead and paste the link in and hit enter. And that should make your second VS Code window look like this. And you'll see my code pop up there. And then last step, if you want to, just make sure you're keeping track of your windows here. But if you go back to live share, you can double click on live server. And that's going to open up, the port number should be, it may be something different on yours, but that's going to open up my code in another tab. So you can compare what mine looks like and my code to your code and what your browser looks like. Okay, I know this is only day 3 of working through live share. Does anyone have questions about any of that? I'm going to actually just poll everyone because I don't want to get off to a bad start in class. So I know it says were you able to get your code working, but really what I'm asking for here in the poll was, were you able to get into my live share and get your code open as well and the starter code all functional? Help me out. Who's lost?
I'm not lost. I think I just exited out of the poll, but my computer has like stopped, so I'm just starting everything up again.
No problem.
This is Tiffany. I'm just a little behind.
Okay.
I'm gonna just restart my computer max to see if that's gonna allow me to do the live share.
Okay.
Because I normally do yesterday. So
Yeah, I had an issue joining live share, but I finally got in there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, the live share can be a little finicky, so I don't want you to think it's your guys' fault that you can't get in there. And I will try and dump code into the live stream channel in Slack as a fallback. So if you're having any live share issues, hopefully we'll be able to use that system as a backup. Looks like votes are trickling in. I'm gonna wait just 1 or 2 more minutes to make sure everyone is set up.
I don't know where my poll went, but I'm okay.
Okay, thanks for the audio vote. Wait for one more person, hopefully, to get this working, and then we will get started.
Max, I'm sorry, one more. How do I get to your live share code again? I don't remember.
Yep, no problem. So what you're going to do is you should have your code open. You go to File and New Window up at the top, just so we're in a separate workspace. We're going to go to the little live share button over on the left. And we're going to scroll down to the Join button up in this top window. If you get a little pop-up in the bottom right, you can click on Sign In as Anonymous. And then this little thing is going to ask for your name. Make sure you type in your name there and not the URL and hit Enter. If it is asking for the URL, what you're going to do is go into Slack and right-click on this URL and hit Copy Link. And then back in VS Code, you can paste that link right in here. Today's link starts with 8E and ends in 81A. So that way you know you've got the latest one. And if you hit enter on that, that should bring you into my code.
Here we go with these screens. Mine was saying, I can't get back to it. Mine was like it was working, but it was taking some time. So that's why I've been kind of stalled.
Did you eventually get in?
I can't get back to the screen because I can't move Zoom out of the way. So thought I had this down today.
Tiffany, were you able to get into the live share?
Sorry, I lost the screen. Okay, so can I share my screen with you for a sec?
Go for it.
Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, so sharing my screen. All right, so I'm at this point. I just don't know.
Okay, so this is your copy of the code, correct?
Yep, that's
Okay.
my copy.
So click into VS Code. Just click
into-
anywhere on that window, just to make it the primary one. Great. Okay, now you're going to go to
Okay.
File, New Window,
File, new window.
and then you're going to click on the live share icon over on the left, in the new window. So right here.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And then join.
Yep.
And then you're going to grab the link from Slack.
Okay.
So just right click
This
here.
one?
Yep, right click on that. And copy link. And then
Okay.
go back to VS Code. Wrong VS Code window. So if you
Wrong VS Code.
yep, click on that one, see if your minimized one's the right one.
Okay. This one?
It wasn't,
Nope.
but that's all right. We can use this. Just live share and
Join. Okay.
That's a weird error. Does not have
Right.
permission.
I'm just gonna close that particular window.
That's good. Good idea. Close that and just hit F3 on your keyboard to space out all your windows. And
okay.
let's grab that one.
This one right here.
Yep.
Okay. There we go.
Go ahead and paste the URL in there.
Okay. Did it do it?
Command A for select all,
Command A.
and now
Okay.
Command V to paste over that, and enter, and
Okay.
you are in.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help, Christy?
Share.
Yep.
Hold on, let me get desktop. See how it's saying? You see where it's saying starting collaboration session?
Okay, so you got two issues going on here. One, you accidentally joined mine in the browser. So go ahead and close out of the 3 tabs in the browser here, here, and here.
Oh,
Okay. Now from here, hit cancel. And this is your copy of the code, correct?
right.
Okay, so we
Oh,
don't
yes,
want to,
yes.
we never want to join a live share session from your copy of the code. So go to File up at the top and drop down to New Window. And now you want to click your live share and click Join. And then continue as anonymous. Hit Enter because your name's already in there. Go ahead and paste in the link that, although that does look like the right one, but just Command V and Enter. And you are in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, anyone else for questions?
So are we saving the files, or I mean copying the files from day 3 over to day 4, or are we?
Great question. Yeah, so you've got 2 options there. If you want to keep working with your code, what you can do is go into Finder, go into day 3, just copy your file here, so Command C, and then go back over to your day 4 folder, or create a day 4 folder if you don't have it yet.
Yeah, I got that.
Paste it in there. And then in your VS Code, just make sure you've got the D4 file open. Or you can use the file that I had in Google Drive and download it. But either one is completely fine to use.
All right.
And I just heard that paste went through. So if you go back into your VS Code, that file should show up here over on the left.
I have a quick question. Sometimes I can't find my folder. Like, it's there. Like, if I search it in the search bar, I can find my folder. But like, I want to do that, so I just can't find my folder right now. Can you turn it back down? Thanks.
So once you find your file, so if like you go to search and you say I'm looking for my code, and you see that it pops up, if you right click on it and hit show in closing folder, it should show you where it is and have the file that it's in, or the folder that it's in, right above the file. So if you can search for it and find it, also if you single click on it, you see down at the bottom here, it's showing you the file path. It's saying that it's in my home folder or desktop and then my code. So hopefully that will help you find the folder. Okay, we are going to keep trucking along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the outline, and I'm going to pull up our website mockup, just so we've got an idea of what we're creating here, right? So we've got our layout done, and now we can start going in and start replacing some of our content, our columns, with our actual content, right? So these are actually all emojis, so we don't actually have to use any image tags here. But this is an opportunity for you guys to follow along. So if at any point you feel like it's going too fast or you need a break to catch up, just unmute and wave your hands and scream and panic, and I will take a break and let everyone catch up. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get these first 2 columns done, and then we'll give everyone a chance to catch up. So I'm going to come into my code, and I've got the word clouds here, right? Well, I'm going to hit Control Command Space, and that's going to pull up my emoji picker. And we are going to use the same trick that we used in diagrams.net, right? So I'm just going to do a search for clouds. I'm going to select that and put it in. And when I come over here and look in my weather, you notice I've got my cloud icon there. Okay, well, that's great, but my clouds are a little tiny, right? So we're at the point now where because we've got content in, we can start styling our content. So what I'm going to do is I am going to say, hey, I'm going to add an ID to my column because I need to target just those clouds, right? I'm going to create a unique ID here. I'm not going to use a class because I'm not going to be reusing this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it today's weather icon. Now notice I'm not putting any spaces in my IDs. I'm capitalizing every letter of a new word. That's called camel case. And it's called camel case because this is lower and then every other word gets an uppercase letter. You could also use dashes or underscores if you prefer to separate out words, but camel case tends to be the dominant casing used in JavaScript, and so that's what I like to use kind of everywhere. So now we've got a little bit of a problem here. I've got my style up here up at the top, but I'm going to have a lot of CSS that I'm putting in here, and I don't want one mega long HTML document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to hit my new file icon, and I'm going to create a file called style.css. And I'm going to use a hashtag because that's how I link to an ID. I'm going to paste in my today's weather icon, and I'm going to say I want that to be big. I'm going to start with 36 pixels and see what that looks like. So I'm going to save both of my files. I'm going to come over here, and my clouds are still the same size. Does anyone know why?
How'd you get to the emojis again?
Great question. If you put your cursor wherever you want the emoji to show up and hit Control, Command, and Space, your little emoji picker should pop up.
Okay.
Answer your question, Max, because you didn't link it yet.
Yep. Because I didn't what?
You didn't link the CSS style sheet yet.
You got it. That is exactly the problem. So just because we've created our style.css and used the same ID, we haven't told index.html to go look in style.css. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, I'm going to add a link, and my href is going to go right to my style.css file. And we just need to tell it, hey, that file is a style sheet. So go ahead and reference that. So I'm going to save. I'm going to come back over. Now I've got my clouds a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's looking good. But now my clouds are kind of over to the left, right? And if we look back at our screenshot, they look nice and centered, right? They look like they're off of this border over here on the left. So what we can do is add in, we can come in to our ID in our CSS and say text align center. And Doug, don't worry, I'll be getting to other alignment classes in Bootstrap, but we're just starting with CSS off the bat. So now I come over here and I've got my clouds nice and centered. So, gonna take a moment there, see if anyone has questions.
I had a question I think I just answered. Because it's a special character, it's really like text. It's just an emoji, so that's why we can use text stuff on it, right?
Great question, yeah. And CSS lets you play it a little fast and loose with text center. Any item that they consider inline, they will let you center with text center. So we will get to the point where we are aligning things using Bootstrap's alignment system, which is using Flexbox under the hood. And that's what's going to let us get things kind of outside of just text-centered. But yes, because it is an emoji, and emojis are technically text, they're just special encoded text using the UTF-8 encoding scheme. way more technical than we need to go into. But yes, you're completely right. Because it is an emoji, it is considered text, and that's why we can use our text align center.
Thank you.
Hey Max, quick quick question.
Yep.
How did you paste that cloud?
Yeah, so what I did is in my text editor, I didn't actually paste it. What I did is I hit Control, Command, and Space, and that's what popped open my emoji picker. And so I did a search for cloud, and if I double click on it, it's going to go ahead and insert it for me.
Okay. So you said, I'm sorry, one more time. What was the
Control, Command, Space.
Control, Command, Space? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to keep going here. We're going to try and get our temperature working. So let's look at our screenshot again. We've got 48.
I'm sorry, Max. 1 second.
Yep.
My apologies. I ended up going to, for some reason, it took me back to the wrong file. I'm back in like day 3. I just had to get back to day 4 real quick. My apologies.
Okay. So we're going to try and keep going here. So we are going to get our temperature working next. So in our temperature, we are going to say, hey, we would like to throw 48, and then we're going to use the degree picker. So we're going to Control Command Space again, do a search for degree, and we get our nice little percentage there. And then, if we look, we've got our degree F and our degree C. So I'm going to come right underneath it, and I'm going to say, hey, I have my Control Space again, and I'm going to say degree, and we get our nice little F. And then I'm going to hit a space and say Shift, and then the key beneath delete is a little vertical bar separator. So that key may be one that you haven't used a ton. That also holds our other slash. But we'll actually be using that key pretty often as a programmer, because that is the same symbol we use to say or in a logic operator. But we'll be getting a little bit more into that in our JavaScript. Okay, and so I'm going to hit a space. I'm going to hit my Control Space again. I'm going to search for degree and pull up my Celsius. And they do look a little weird in the text editor, but let's see what they look like in my browser. So I'm going to go back to my weather and, okay, that's not quite what I want it to look like. Let's look at our screenshot. It's bigger here, and you know what? I'm noticing we don't have a degree kind of up at the top because we've got it going on down here. And what this interface is trying to tell us is because this is bolded, it's showing up in Fahrenheit, right? And later down the road, we could come back to this and make it so if you clicked on Celsius, it would actually do the conversion for us. But we're only focused on front end right now. So we need to get this looking like, get this looking like this. So the first thing that we can do is we can say, all right, we can't target this 48 without targeting the temperature down below it. So what we need to do is put this in a span class, move our a span element, and now we can put an ID on that. So our ID that we're going to put on that, I'm going to call that temp. And let's be specific, because if you look at our mockup, well, we've got a temp here, we've got a temp here, we've got a temp here, right? Calling that temp is not a particularly accurate thing. So let's call it today's temp instead. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to come back into my style sheet. I'm going to add today's temp. And now let's make that a little bit bigger. So I'm going to say font size 36. And then we're going to use a new one called font weight. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it bold. So font weight's a little weird. Font weight 400 is normal text. Font weight 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, you're going all the way from semi-bold all the way up to very bold. But bold is normally considered 700, and then thin is considered 100. So if we come back over to our browser, nothing's changed. Okay, so we did something wrong somewhere. My today's temp is in there, and we used a hashtag. I've got my ID lining up, and my 48 is in there, and it's in a span. Does anyone see what's wrong?
Yes.
What's wrong, Larry?
Somebody else want to answer, I'll give them a chance. If not, I'll answer.
No, go right ahead.
You didn't save.
I didn't save, and I know that because I've got that little dot up at the top. So I need to go in, make sure I save both files, and now all of a sudden I've got my big 48 degrees, and that's looking a lot like that 48. I am going to take out that little degree before I forget. Okay. Now we've got a problem of this F and C should be down on the next line. But I want to do additional styling of that F and the C. So what I'm going to do is instead of putting this in a span, if I put it in a span, it's going to be in line, right? It's just going to let us target things. But if I use a div instead, a div is automatically going to try and push down to that next line. So if I have multiple divs in a row, unless they're using the column system or unless we have a different class on them, they're automatically going to flow down to the next line. So I'm just going to put this in a div to start and look back in my browser, and now they're on the right line. Okay, that's great, but we're not all the way there yet. I've got that Fahrenheit, right? So I'm going to come back in and put another span around my Fahrenheit, move this over, and I'm going to use a class called bold. Now I come back to my browser, nothing's changed, and that's because, well, I used a class called bold, but I haven't defined that anywhere. I haven't said, hey, bold should look like this. So I'm going to go back to my style. I'm going to add a new class called bold, and I'm going to make my font weight 700 again. Now I come over, I've got my degree F going on there. Okay. Any
Matt, I
questions?
take it you don't have you don't have your window open at full screen for the browser window. That's why it's layering.
What do you mean layering?
So like the 48 over the Fahrenheit and Celsius, if I open my browser window all the way up, it's all on the same line. But if I close it,
yeah, so it shouldn't be doing that. Make sure that you've got a div around your F and your C.
Okay, I know. Thank you.
So when you said for like today's temp where it says span ID at, you said earlier that we can put a dash between them.
Correct.
So when we do that, do they still have to be capitalized like the second text or?
No, when you use dashes or underscores, you typically don't use uppercase anywhere.
Okay.
But you can. It won't break if you do have uppercase in it, but you tend to use all lowercase when you use dash or underscores.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Okay, let's take just a quick break there. Let's kick off the poll and see where everyone's at.
It's just Fahrenheit that's supposed to be bold, right?
Correct. And the way we did that is we made the span end right after the Fahrenheit.
Cool. Thank you.
I just put a link in the outline too about different types of casing that are used in programming and what they're called and how they look. So just in case anybody's interested in that.
Can you actually throw that down under resources, Caitlin?
Yes, I can move it. Whoops. Yeah, I meant to do that.
Thanks. Okay, who's lost and needs help?
Nicole.
Yep. Where you stuck?
Once you did the degree, I didn't know what to do anymore. But I didn't really get far. I just thought I would watch.
Okay. So if you're all right with watching, try and save the I'm lost option for like if you're not understanding the content or it's not sinking in. The way of thinking there is kind of like if you're really trying to follow along, or like if you're like, I don't understand the words he's saying or what he's doing at all, even though I'm not following along, if I'm just like, whoa, this content is not sinking in, that's what the I'm lost should be for. And so that's kind of the 3-tier system, right? Of like, I'm following along, it's working, we're caught up, or I'm not, I'm not following along, but at least it's still sinking in. Like, this will make sense as I go back and try it later on. Or the I'm lost is like, I feel like I just would do better if I didn't show up in class. Like, this makes no sense to me at all. And that's what the I'm lost should be saved for.
Oh, yeah, my bad. And I feel like maybe, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, and we can go back and revise those terms a little bit so they're a bit more specific. The I'm lost is like a new thing that we've added. But the thinking there is like, it's like I'm lost and frustrated, maybe the better option there.
Yeah. Okay, with that being said, oh, go ahead. I see you put your finger up. Go ahead.
Can I go in the breakout room real quick with Caitlin? I missed something and I just need her to, I think she can help me get to where I need to be.
I got you. Give me a second.
Okay.
Today I actually remembered to make Caitlin co-host so she can do that.
Good job.
Okay. So
okay, Max. I'm sorry. Now I am lost. For some odd reason I missed. I think when you were putting like weights or something or another.
Go ahead and share your screen for me.
Okay. Alrighty. So, first of all, I'm missing that little mark that you made between the F and the C. I know that for sure.
Shift and the key under delete.
Delete. Okay.
Okay. So things look pretty good here. I notice you're missing an opening arrow on your style tag on line 11.
Okay.
That I don't think is going to cause any problems, but something that we want to fix because that will get your syntax highlighting working. Okay, all of this looks good. What you are missing is we made an external style sheet. And that, if you see, I've got my style.css going on here. That's what you're missing over here.
Okay, well, that would make a lot of sense. And I'm just going to copy and paste that so I can catch up.
That's fine.
Okay.
So go ahead and create that new file.
Okay, and then I think I should be good at that point.
Yeah, and you already have it linked right here, so you were paying attention for most of it. And
I
once
just
you
missed
get
that one step.
Yeah. So
okay.
Paste and save. Oh.
Oops. I guess I didn't copy it. Let's not do that. Command delete that.
And then save that file and also make sure you've got your index.html saved. And now let's see. Good to go.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Max, so did that second div around the Fahrenheit and Celsius symbols, did that make a second box inside of that row?
So there should be, you're talking about the div on line 25?
Yeah, so between the 48 and then that div, did that make like another extra box in that column where it was at?
Yeah, so let me remember to share my screen. So we definitely have a box inside of a box, right? So we have our outer div going on here, and that's our column. And then this is just content within that column. So we don't have a div there, but we did put a span on it so we could target it. And then we did do another div here. So I'm actually breaking a rule. Because we did another div, I should move this down onto another line. So it makes it a little bit easier to read that code. So if you look, and what I did here to open this up, we're going to spend more time on the DevTools next week. Don't worry about this if you don't have to dive deep into this, but I right-clicked and I hit inspect. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull open our developer tools. And the nice thing here is if I hover over this div col2, you can see where that div is actually taking up space, right? The green is going to be the padding, and then the blue is the actual content of the div. But the kind of cool thing is if I come down here onto this div, you can see I've got another div that's containing my F and my C.
Oh, okay.
And so, yes, to answer your question, you're absolutely right. Yes, we created a div inside of a div, which is kind of like a box inside of a box. A div stands for division, by the way. I've been writing HTML code for 15 years, and I never knew that div stood for division. So you actually do learn something new every day. But, yes, we created a box inside of a box so that we could move that down onto the next line.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Max.
Yep.
Completely random. Sorry. So please remind me again, how do you get the emojis to pop up? Because I'm trying to put that degree Fahrenheit.
Yep.
Right there. I'm trying to put that in, and I cannot get the little menu to pop up.
Control Command Space.
That's what I've been doing, and I literally only got it to pop up one time, and for some reason it won't do it again.
So you have to make sure that your cursor is in the right place. Because if you Control Command Space and you're not in a text field, it just won't open at all.
Oh, okay.
So you just have to make sure, like, all right, my cursor's here. This is where I want it to go. And if you've got it in the right space there, then you should be able to Control Command Space.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we're going to just keep on rolling here. I'm going to look at my screenshot, and I've got precipitation, humidity, and wind. So I'm going to load all of that content in. It might be ugly. It may not be what I want it to look like, but let's get the content in first, and then we can always style. So in my details, I am going to say precipitation is going to be 88%, and my humidity is going to be 86%. And my wind is going to be 10 miles an hour. Now, everyone else is in Syracuse, so if you would like to make precipitation well over 100%, I think that is fitting for Syracuse. But, you know, whatever values you would like to do. Oh, had an extra one in there. I'm going to come back over, and now, oh man, is that ugly. Let me close this out. I've got precipitation 88 down on the next line. I've got things not wrapping right. That's not right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in a line break here, right? Because the computer doesn't care about our spacing. But when we want it to care about our spacing, we need to insert little line breaks here. Now, we could put each one of those in a div if we wanted to, but because this is kind of all flowing in line, I'm just going to use line breaks there. So I'm going to save, I'm going to refresh, and now if I make my window a little bit bigger, okay, that's feeling better, right? But it still doesn't feel right. So let's look at our mockup. And to me, that text looks smaller than the text down here or the text on the right. So what I want to do is I want to just shrink that text down a little bit more to make it feel kind of more in line. So I'm going to add another class on here. And because we're just targeting this one ID, I'm going to say today's details. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to save. I'm going to go to my CSS. I'm going to add a new class for today's details. And I'm going to set my font size down to 12 pixels. I want to go smaller, not bigger. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to move my zoom. And now, all of a sudden, that feels right. That looks almost just like my mockup. So we're going to keep going here. I just want to finish up my location and get our top row polished off. And then we will take a break and see if anyone needs help. So I have my location, the current time, and the current conditions. So I'm going to say Ocean City, New Jersey, 08226. It is Tuesday at 1 p.m. I guess I should do that Thursday at 6:29 p.m. And we're going to say it's actually been pretty rainy here all day. So I'm going to go up and actually change my emoji to a little rain one so everything matches and makes sense. So I'm going to save. I'm going to come over here. Everything's in there, but it's all up on the same line. Well, we already know how to fix that, right? We could put line breaks in for each of these, but let's be a little different. Let's put divs in just so we get practice wrapping our content in divs. So I'm going to put a div here, and I'm going to move my closing div to the end. I'm going to put a div here, and move that closing div to the end, and the same here. So I'm going to come in to my browser. Okay, we're making good progress. That's all on the right line now. Let me come over here. Now I've got my location bolded, right? So I'm going to come back in. I'm going to add now I've got two options here, actually. I didn't think about this. I could add an ID called location and then go in, create my ID, my CSS, and make it bold in there, right? Font weight 700, we've seen that. But I've already got a class called bold. And if we look, because it's a class, it means we can reuse it. So I'm actually going to go into my location, and instead of creating a whole new class or a whole new ID, I'm just going to reuse that class. So I come over here. Now I've got my Ocean City bold. Now, this is feeling pretty good. The only thing we're missing is this should be aligned over to the right. And so all we need to do is use a class that's built into Bootstrap called text end. That used to be called justify right, but in the newer versions of Bootstrap, that is now called text end. And I know that because I can go to Get Bootstrap and go to their documentation and go to their layout and look at their utilities and look at their text alignment, and there we see all kinds of options, including, I hope, text end and end aligned text on all viewpoint sizes, right? So that's giving you the preview of it. That was under utilities and text. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over to my weather. That's all looking good. And I'm feeling so confident about this row that I can come in and I want to take off my blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to add an ID on here. No, let's just take off our blue. So I'm just going to comment that out. Now, I don't think we've covered comments yet. So there are times that we don't want code to apply anymore, but we aren't quite ready to delete it yet. We almost want to tell the browser, hey, if you see this special symbol, ignore any of this code that's about to be coming until you find the end symbol. So if I come in here, highlight those 3 lines, and hit Command and the question mark / button, that's going to add in these 2 little comments. Now, that special symbol is telling the browser, ignore this code. Pretend like this code was just a comment for another developer. And we could do that manually, right? We could type a / and a star, and same thing down here. We could just type in those 2 keys. I'm going to save that, and now my blue has disappeared. And now I'm just going to come in and do a little tweak because I'm looking at my screenshot. My icon's a lot bigger. So I just want to come in here and look at my style, and let's try and go way bigger. Let's try and go up to 75 and see what that looks like. And come back over here, go to my weather. That's looking good. Okay, let's take a quick break. And before I launch this poll, if you're working on catching up, don't vote anything in the poll. If you got it all working and it looks just like mine, go ahead and vote sure did. If you're just kind of following along for the ride, but like all the content's still sinking in and it's all still making sense, vote no, but keep going. And then if you are sitting here and you're like, I don't know what this guy is talking about, that's when you vote for I'm lost.
Max?
Yep.
Yeah, so I have all the correct code showing, but for some reason my weather chart is still kind of like crooked.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, 1 second. Do this. Hold on. Oh, there it is. All right.
Okay. So.
Oh, wait. Let me fix this real quick. There we go.
So first thing I notice is that's actually, so go ahead and move line 25. Move this div out to here. Other dark. Yep. And then put your span up on the next line. So yep, enter there. And that wasn't anything wrong. That was just an indentation thing. Man, you weren't kidding. Your code does look right.
Yeah, it's weird. I'll show you what it's just it looks so crooked.
Okay, let's scroll up a little bit. I had a hunch. That hunch is
his Fahrenheit and Celsius is outside of the div with the temperature.
Great.
He's got an extra div.
So your Fahrenheit Celsius is supposed to be in here.
Yeah.
So if you take all of this and put it up inside, sorry, that was a terrible drawing. Basically, you need to move line 24 down to after line 27.
Okay, all right, wait. So 24 right here. All right. Oops.
And
so just take this div, like this closing div right here.
Yep.
Okay.
And you're gonna move that down to after 27.
Okay. Oh, they weren't supposed to like be 1 second. They weren't supposed to be in separate divs.
No. So because we want the 48 and the degrees Fahrenheit, degrees Celsius to show up in the same column, we're putting them all in that column too.
Oh, okay. All right, that's my bad.
So yeah, and then just fix your indentation. So 25 through 27 should just be one more layer in.
Okay, 1 second. 25 and 27.
25 through 27. Yeah, those three.
Okay. So you want me to?
Nope. Just tab in. Yep, one more. And then same for, excuse me, 25 and 26. Just add one more tab to them.
Okay. 26.
And then 25. Okay. And so what we're trying to do there is we're saying, hey, this div opens here and closes down here. So anything inside of this div is going to be at this indentation level, and anything inside of that next div is going to be at this indentation level.
Okay.
So go ahead and save, and let's see what it looks like in the browser. Beautiful.
Awesome. Okay.
So
I will remember that.
Let's go back to your code, and not to make an example out of you, but totally making an example out of you. This is a great case to look at, right? Because what we ended up doing is we had our row, and we had a call 2 and a call 2 and a call 2, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden, we had this one div that, because it wasn't in a column, Bootstrap freaked out and was like, that's not a column. What am I supposed to do with this div? And so it just dumped it in, and then it was like, oh, you've got more columns underneath this. Let's start stacking those together. And so that's a great example of divs are super flexible, but we do need to pay attention of where we're putting them, because putting a div inside of a column is totally different than putting a div between two columns, and that's what you accidentally had.
Okay. I think it's because it's always so many divs. That's where I always get caught up at for some reason. It's always the divs, and definitely trying to get a better understanding of that.
Yep. And your indentation was correct, so that I didn't initially see the problem, right? Normally I can look at indentation and go, all right, here's your initial problem. And that's why Caitlin beat me to the punch there. She was looking and going, wait, that div isn't a column. That div is outside of the column flow, and that's what's pushing it down.
Okay. Cool. All right, thank you.
No problem.
To be fair, Max, I catch people's mistakes all day long.
This is very true. Okay.
Get out of here.
I gotcha. Okay, we got a fair amount of votes in. Anyone have questions before we keep going?
Yeah, I have one question real quick. I think I know how to fix it, but I don't understand why it's showing up on differently on your screen than it is on my screen. The only thing I see different between your example and my example is yours, the 48 is bold, and the 48's not bold on mine.
Okay. Go ahead and share your
my
screen.
Yeah.
And let's take a look. You normally don't have to ask permission to share your screen. You can just go ahead and do it, especially when we're troubleshooting. Maybe while I'm in the middle of writing code, we shouldn't be doing that. But normally feel free to just jump in when you're asking your question. Okay, so let's look at your code. Okay, so you've got your similar problem that you should just pay attention to your indentation. So this div and this div should be indented. So 25 through 27 should be indented another level deep.
Okay.
And then
shit. Oops.
Regular tab. Yep. And then this div on 28 should go over one level as well. Don't think that that's actually causing your problem. There you go. But that just makes the code a little bit easier to read. Okay, so so save for me and just refresh in your browser. Okay, so that explains a little bit more. Okay, so we've got the ID of today's temp. So let's pop open your CSS. And you've got today's temp, and you're just missing the font weight 700 there.
Oh,
that's why.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
I want to get back. There we go. Stop share.
And just a reminder, you can always start a live server instead of opening the file manually in your browser, and that will make it so whenever you make a change to your CSS or HTML and you save it, it will automatically refresh in your browser for you.
Okay, thanks.
Not a requirement. I mean, if you like refreshing and not stopping you, there's nothing wrong with opening the file, but nice little pro feature there. Okay, any other questions? Okie doke. So let's keep continuing on sharing my screen. So we've got our bottom bar going on here. And then I like to call it like the final finishing touches, right? I've got a little outline bar going here. I've got a row going, maybe some alignment tweaks to do at the end, but always important to get through all of our content and get it looking kind of the way we want before we start layering in additional things. So I am going to go back to my HTML. I'm going to go down to my rows that have my Monday and all of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, ooh, lost my mouse, sorry. I am going to say, I know that I'm going to want to style this independently from this, which is independent from this, right? Because I know my emoji I'm going to want to make a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say in my column, I'm going to do a div, and that class is going to be my day, and I'm going to say Monday. And then I'm going to do a div, and I'm going to do a class, and I'm actually going to call this small icon, because I know I've got a bigger icon going on up here, and maybe big icon would have actually been a better ID for that. But I'm going to call it small icon, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to get some sun. And then I'm going to come in and do another div class. And you know what? This one, I don't even know if we're going to need to style it. So let's just try it with a div to get started. And I'm going to grab my degree. And we're going to say 50 degree Fahrenheit. I'm going to come back over to my browser. Okay, it's all showing up, but it's not showing up quite the way I want it to. Let's go in, and I think our emoji size is going to be the biggest fix. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to add a new one called small icon, and I'm going to make that, let's try 36 pixels and see how that looks. That did nothing because I didn't follow my own rule and camel case. Okay, that looks better. Let's see what's going on with my day. I think my day should be a little bit bigger too. So I did a class on that. Let's make my day font size of, let's try 16 on that one. Day, Monday. Did that make it any bigger? Maybe 16 is my default and I've just got a weird zoom going on. So let's just quickly run through those and see what it looks like if I've got all of my days in. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing and paste it all the way down. If I look at that, I'm like, something's not looking right there. Anyone see what's going on of why this kind of looks right and this doesn't look right? Shanja, you're muted if you're answering.
You don't have like that divider there.
The divider's a good point. Yeah, let's just throw that in really quickly. That's just going to be a quick HR tag.
They're not centered in their boxes, maybe.
Bingo. So all we need to do is use a text center here and just quickly run it down, right? Because if we only do it on 2, all of a sudden it's off, right? We don't want just 1 or 2 of these centered. We want all the contents centered in the column. So we need to go through and add text center to all of them. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's see what we've got going on in the screenshot. Looks like the screenshot. Let's come in and just make it a little varied. 60, 70, 40, 30, and change up some of our icons to rain and lightning. And do we have a windy? Let's do that for windy. Come back over here. All right, that's looking good. Now, if I look at my screenshot, I think we're bordering on that, hey, we're close. We just need a little buttoning up there, right? It would be nice if we had this border going around the side there. And there's some space going on at the top here that I feel like we're missing going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top. And we have everything in a container, but I don't like targeting the container because if I use containers elsewhere on the page, I don't want my styling to apply to that. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call this my weather container. I'm going to grab that ID. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, hey, my weather container is going to get a border that's going to be a 1 pixel solid, and let's make it gray and see what that looks like. Okay, that helped kind of button it all up, but it's right up against the top. Now I want that line to come down off the top of the page. So am I going to use margin or padding?
Is it padding?
Padding.
So let's try and add padding and see what happens. So I'm going to add padding of 15 pixels. And what that did is that moved my content in from off the side of the box, which is what I want, but that top line is still at the top of my window. So what I'm going to do there, I don't need margin on the sides or on the bottom, but I want it just pushed off the top. So I'm going to add a margin top, and let's make that 30 pixels. All right, that's looking pretty good. The only other thing I want to do is this looks a little sharp to me. It looks like it's in a box. So we can add another border property called border radius and make it 5 pixels. That's it. We've made our website. And we have actually laid this out so well that you'll see if I shrink it down, our website actually looks pretty good mobile responsive. And that is all thanks to Bootstrap. Because we're using these columns, it's using different breakpoints to size out our columns a little differently. So if we pull this across, you'll see, other than this box, which we could do some work on, this actually spaces out pretty well and adjusts the sizing for us when we come all the way down. Okay. Spend the next 9 minutes answering questions. We'll do our break at 7 to 7:20, and then we will decide when we come back from break if we want to spend more time on this as a class before we move into our next project, or if we want to split out into 2 groups, have one group continue working on the weather project, maybe doing a summary of it, trying to get everyone caught up, and then have the other half of class go on and work on a different project. But before we get there, I'm going to kick off my poll, and in the next 9 minutes, we are going to answer any questions people have on where they may be stuck on the weather project.
For some strange reason, I can't get my bowl to work on the Ocean City.
Yep, go ahead and share your screen. Stop your screen share for me and restart it sharing all of desktop 1. Perfect. Okay. So you've got your div class bold going on. That looks right. You've got your span in there. Go ahead and pop open your style.css. Let's see what's going on in there. Bold font weight. Okay, go back to your weather. And scroll up just a little bit to your link tag. Okay, here's your problem. Your link tag is using style.css, but when you created your style.css file over here, you put a hashtag at the beginning of it. So whenever we create a style.css, we don't actually want to call it hashtag style.css. So if you just rename that, yep, and delete that out and hit enter, and then pop back over to your browser. Wham bam, bold text, man. Good work. Oh, come on, Max. Stop drawing on people's screens. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I just had one more question. So just to confirm, when you changed the style category earlier and you put like the little asterisks and it turned green, what is that again?
I put the little asterisk and it turned green. Oh, it's a comment. Sorry. That is a comment, and great question to revisit that. A comment is the syntax in every language is different. So the way you put a comment in HTML is an arrow, an exclamation point, and 2 dashes.
Okay.
You may say, well, Max, you put a slash and a asterisk. You didn't put an exclamation point and 2 dashes. That's because I actually did it in the style tags, which means it's CSS. And so because I'm in CSS syntax land, I use my slash and my star there. So you can, let me share my screen and make an example out of this. If I, for whatever reason, didn't want my cloud showing up, I can put my mouse on that line and hit Command/, and you'll see VS Code intelligently knows I'm in HTML land. So if I save that, my cloud is going to disappear. And what comments are really meant for is for a developer to leave a comment. So if I said something like, wow, this emoji is fire, what I could do is just hit Command/, and that's going to comment it out. So it's not going to show up in my browser, but if I go back in and comment that in, all of a sudden that's going to show up. So I'm going to comment that out by hitting my Command/ and go back to my clouds and hit Command/ on that again, and it's going to uncomment it for me.
Okay.
And then same for up here. If I wanted to come back up here, I can highlight my code and hit Command/. That's going to put it all back in and remind us of our columns and how they're all working kind of under the hood. But if I go back into that code, as long as I have it selected and I can hit Command/, that's going to take out that styling. Leave it in the code so I can toggle it back on really quickly if I need to, but still have it so the browser is going to ignore it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I think I have everything down, but I am missing the gray line that runs in between.
Yep. So you should have on line 40, basically between your two divs, your two row divs, I just added a line that says HR, and that's a self-closing tag. I added this little line right there.
Sorry, hold on, let me 40. Oh, okay. All right, let me give that a shot. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else for questions before we stop for break?
The HR thing worked. Thank you.
Beautiful. Good work. Okay, so it looks like class is... Oh, Zach, did you have a question?
Yeah, how do you make something a note again?
Yep, you're just gonna highlight whatever text you want to make a note and hit Command/.
Oh, okay. And then let me see. That make this red. What am I doing? Oh, because I have to highlight this too. Okay. Undo that. Maybe highlight all this. /save. Good. Okay. And then I don't have a box around mine saying ID weather container, so I must have done something wrong with the weather container.
Oh, sorry. Did you just start sharing your screen, or did I?
I just started sharing it.
Can you kick that off again? Sorry, I think I booted you.
Yeah, you're good.
There you go. Okay.
This isn't showing up as being...
Yep. Just pay attention. Where is your closing arrow for that? Yeah, you got it.
There we go. Cool.
Nice work.
Thanks.
You're just missing, I think we put a text center on all of the columns. And then we added a little styling for the weather icon in that second row to make them a little bit bigger. So we added a text center, keep going down a little bit, to each one of the cols in that second row. So 42, 47, 52, we just added a text center to all of them.
Oh, I see. So that.
Yep. And then if you can show me your CSS for small icon. Yeah, so change, I used a dash by accident in the HTML. So you see how that small icon with a capital I and no dash? If you go back to your weather.html.
Oh.
And make small icon, just take out the dash and make it a capital I. I made that mistake, and then I think it made it easy to replicate.
Okay.
And I think that should get you to an exact match.
Cool. Nice. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so let's take a break. You will stick around if anyone has questions, and then once we get back from the break at 7:20, we'll decide where we want to go next.
Okay. Max, quick question.
Yep. Everyone else, go ahead and take your break, unless you have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Larry. My margin top in my style style CSS. I'm sorry, my brain is like bleh. It's not hyperlinking. It's not changing colors to blue, which is weird because it was fine leading up to that point, and now it's just not.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay.
You were missing a semicolon on line 29.
Line 20. Oh, well, that would make a lot of sense.
And then don't forget it on 30 while you're at there.
You said on 30. Yep. Okay. And now with my, I don't know if this is going to change. Let me save this. Oh, maybe. I think it did.
Yep.
Oh, how did you get that line across?
Go back to your HTML.
Okay.
And on line 49, if your line numbers line up, they might not. Between 38 and 39, you're going to add a self-closing tag that says HR. So right after 38.
Okay, so 39. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
39. Okay.
You're going to open a tag and say HR, which stands for header row, and then slash, because there's no content that goes in it, and then the closing tag. And save that sucker, and let's take a look. Oh, whoa,
no.
Okay. We broke something very good there.
Okay.
What? Very confused at how we broke that. Comment that line out for me, so hit Command/ and save.
The file wasn't saved before she added that, so I wonder if she was...
Oh, if there's something else broken. All right, let's go back to your browser and let's take a look. The browser may have been a little out of date. Yeah, okay, so we've got a break somewhere else that isn't being caused by that HR. So let's go back to your code.
Okay.
Comment that HR back in. So just command / again, and that's going to make the comments go away. Okay, now let's scroll up a little bit and see what's going on.
Is it this right here in line 20?
No, so your problem is you've got a container, but where does your first row start?
I'm sorry, got the container right here, and my first row starts.
You're missing your first row.
Okay. So underneath my container, there should be, I think I deleted that on accident.
Yep. Between 18 and 19, you should have a row. Div class equals row.
So just enter.
No, so put that back. When I say between 18 and 19, I mean at the end of 18, hit a new enter.
Okay. And you said I should have a div class.
Yep, div class equals row. And yep, come outside of that, put your closing tag in. And now delete that closing div because I think you actually have a matching closing div already. And save, and let's take a look and see what that looks like. Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Larry, did you have your question?
Yes. So when we resize the window, what's happening to the different columns? Because I know that in the first row we have 3 columns of 2 and 1 column of 6.
Yeah, so because we didn't specify a additional breakpoint, those column sizes still get applied all the way down to the extra small screen size.
So it's just proportional to what they were then, but just on a smaller screen.
You got it. Now we could adjust that and use col MD6 and a col XS12. And what that would do is it would say, hey, you know, I can do a quick example of that. So
that would give us 2 columns or 1 column, right?
Exactly, yeah. So like if for whatever reason we wanted this to take up the rest of the space and then have the location wrap onto the next line, what we could do, now this is going to spite me because it didn't work yesterday, but I'm going to try it. We're going to say, hey, I want this to be a col MD2 on small screen sizes and up, but if it's on an extra small one, I want it to be the full, not 12, 2, I want it to be 8 across. And then on this one, on extra small, I want it to be the full 12, but on small and up, it can be a 6. And so that makes no change now, but when I pull it down to a small enough screen, all of a sudden this is spanning all the way across, and this is taking up the whole 12. Now I did... Caitlin, this is driving me nuts. Shouldn't 8 be working there? She might be on break. I'm not... This should be up here, and I am missing something obvious on why that's not there. There's my 7. That's a 2. Oh, you know what? My icon might be a little too big to fit, and that's what's pushing it over. Let me see if I drop this down to a 65. Let's go to a 25. That all fits. That all fits. XS7. I am so confused as to why that isn't up here. But this is doing the right thing and saying, hey, on an extra small screen, take up 12, and then on a small screen, take up 6, which is why when we back it out here, everything is still functional. And it looks the way we want it to, right? Because it's doing 2, 2, 2, and 6, and that all adds up to 12. And then when we get down to that smaller screen size, it is taking everything else down. Because we didn't specify a different breakpoint there, those 2 are going to stay 2s. This one should be this one should be an 8 and should be up there, and then this one is because we put it to that 12, it's taking up the full width.
Okay.
It is gonna drive me nuts though until I figure out why that one is not jumping up there for me. I will play with that and get back to you. There's something weird going on because all of this adds up, so it should be taking that width and isn't on the extra small. So I'll play with that and let you know. But yes, in answer to your question, it's still staying proportional to the way we initially had it, because we didn't specify breakpoints here.
Okay. Thank you.
How do you create like in styles, like you know how you would your IDs to just pull it over to styles?
Yep.
Yeah. How do you do that?
So I'm just adding IDs here and then just copying the word and going into styles, creating my new hashtag and pasting it.
Oh, you put hashtag. Okay.
Yep. For IDs,
yeah.
It's the hashtag. For classes, it's the period.
Go again one more time. Sorry.
IDs, it's the hashtag. For classes, it's a period.
Okay. Classes is the period. Thank you. Periods or classes. Huh. Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll notice like our bold we made a class because we want to reuse bold in other places. So that's why it's period bold and then class equals bold in our HTML. But then for our IDs, because we aren't reusing them in multiple places, we make them IDs and then it's just the hashtag in the CSS.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Go ahead, Christy.
Okay, so I just did something and oh wait, let me see. Let me share my screen. Do you? Oh,
sorry. Now you should be able to go.
Continue. Let's go desktop. So this is what I saw. Let me get back to it. This is what I saw, and I know it's wrong. And so I was trying. I know that it's off. So I was trying to copy your CSS. And when I went in to try to do it, it was giving me this.
So you hit sign in instead of join anonymously, and that's where you differed from the way we got in before. So if you hit like escape on that and go back to live share.
Let's go back to live share. Go back to yours?
No. Well, do you already have mine open?
I did, yeah, and I deleted I tried to delete everything out and just copy and paste it because I don't know what I did wrong and it's driving me crazy. Let me see.
Okay, so you should be. This is your copy. So you tried apparently to join my live share from your copy of the code, but you already had my live share open.
Maybe I can't definitively agree with you because I'm not sure, but because you changed some of the code, you changed some of the stuff that you put in there, and I wasn't moving as fast as you were, so I was trying to copy it, and then because see, my precipitation is in the wrong spot in my Ocean City.
Yep. So do you want to keep debugging your code, or do you want to just copy and paste it in? I would encourage you to keep debugging.
I could, but my head is pounding right at this second. So I thought it was this. Well, let me see. Let me show you because I got all the code in. No, that's not what I want. Where is mine? Here's mine. Here's my. Why is it not letting me switch? Okay. So I went in and I put it side by side and I compared everything. But I thought it might have been something was off with the CSS that I put in there.
Okay, save. Both files are saved. So go back to your browser.
She didn't comment out the CSS style from before, so that's one thing.
Okay.
Yes, that's I thought it was the CSS,
So
but I'm not.
Go ahead and refresh.
Here.
Okay, so yeah, there are problems. Let's go back to your index.html. And scroll up to the top. Okay, so you've got your CSS linked, you've got Bootstrap coming in, you've got your call to, your today's temp. That's the span. Here's one problem. Line 26 should be an opening div, not a closing div. So save that and let's see what it does in the browser.
Miracles.
So you still got a little bit more work to go. For example,
right? That cloud is that cloud is off, right?
The cloud should be a little bit bigger. This should be text aligned over to the right, and then all of our blue should be turned off. But I think once you get through those three things, everything else should just work.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm this close, so I'm happy to be this close.
Very good. Yep. Only a couple steps away there.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to take a quick step away. I'll be back in 4 minutes. So I'm going to start a poll just in case people are really against the class split. But what I'm proposing is that we split class. Anyone who is like has weather working or is like 95% of the way there on weather, we can go into a different project. And then if you're still working on weather or want to get that homework done, you can stick behind with Caitlin. But if you're really against that class split, you can vote that top one and say stay together as one class. But if you would like to split class and start working on another project and then still, be able to have that option of staying behind, you can also make that vote as well. Got 4 votes in and 13 people in class, so I'm hoping we get a couple more. Oh, there they go. Now they're rolling in. Give everyone one more minute to vote.
And if you stay with me to work on weather, you can totally just like work on it. And then if you need help, I'm here. Like we don't have to work on it together necessarily unless you need something.
And I'm going to dump that code that we have into the live stream channel.
I have a confession to make.
I'm ready to hear your sins.
No, when I was getting behind, I was like copying and pasting. So I feel like I should have debugged a little bit more, but I hate being behind. But I understand exactly what's going on, and I understand what the tags mean, the periods mean. I understand.
Yeah, and sometimes it just takes an extra class or time after class this weekend to catch up on it, right? Other than free code camp, this is really the only major assignment for this week. And I can tell, I've got a secret of how I can tell if you're copying and pasting code. So I would encourage you, I will never tell that secret, but I would encourage everyone, if you did copy and paste even snippets of it, to delete out the parts you copied and pasted and try and rewrite those parts yourself. because you're just not going to get better at the syntax, and like you're going to be fighting the browser, the text editor in VS Code until you give in and just get that experience, right? And so even this weekend, even if it's fully functional, even if you understand all the code, opening up a new file from scratch, have my code on one side, and just try and type it all in, make sure you're understanding why you're doing it, and then also get in the flow of like going through it the way we went through it in class, right? Because it's not really realistic that you're gonna start writing HTML from the top and write all your HTML and then switch back to your CSS and write all your CSS. What's more realistic is that you're gonna do exactly what we did, right? Hey, let's get Bootstrap in. Okay, now let's go back in and get a row in. Okay, now let's get our columns in and make sure our columns are showing up with a border. Okay, now let's just put placeholder in for that. Let's go get our other row working. Okay, now let's go back in and get our content in. Okay, now that all of our content is in, let's go in and style that row, right? Or let's just focus on that one particular column. Okay, now let's make our way all the way in, right? Because what you notice through our flow is not that we're writing 90 lines of HTML and I know exactly what I'm doing. Little confession for you. I did this project on Tuesday, right? I opened up my text editor. I did all of this. So this is not my first time through this code. But at the same time, I don't, even though I know all the code that I'm about to write out, I don't write all my HTML and then go write all of my CSS, right? There's a natural flow. And that's what it starts to start thinking like an engineer, right? No one thinks in lines of thousands of lines of code. They think step by step, okay, what's it going to take to make this happen? And if you can break that vision down and say, okay, what do I need to do to make this column look right? Let me go do that. Okay, now what about this next column? Oh, that's got to go over to the right. There are all these little things. All of a sudden, you know, when we started this weather project tonight at what, 6:30, at 6 o'clock, it was still a bunch of blue boxes and we had the layout done, but that's it. And in under an hour we were able to make that fully finished website where it was like, oh, I didn't think we could get that far in an hour, and yet we did. And the reasoning behind all of that is going step by step. And it's so frustrating, right? I was working with Christy during the break and she had one slash that was causing her whole website to look like her layout was just utterly and completely broken. And she took out that one slash and all of a sudden it was like her website looked like it was complete. And so if you, it's tough when you're following along with me to be like, I can't let that one slash stop me. I need to stay up with all of the things he's doing. And I get that. But when you do hit that point when you're going on at your own pace, don't try and power through it. Say, it broke here. I'm testing every little column that I get done. Let me go find what broke in what I just did. Because otherwise, you're going to have 2 hours of coding that you did, and you're like, I'm never going to find what broke. But if you're going through that column by column step, you're going to be able to identify, oh, I just wrote these 4 lines of code and it was working before these 4 lines and it's not working now. So it's got to be something in those 4. And that's just something that takes time to test with and get in the swing of it. Okay, so what we're going to do is I am going to send that message. So you've got all of my code in live stream index. And I didn't send my CSS. Okay, all that code is there. If you could use the reactions and the little raise hand button, if you would like to keep working on weather and kind of have Caitlin around for questions, go ahead and raise your hand using reactions and the little raise hand button. Just so we know who to put into the breakout room. And then we will get started on the feedback site if you don't want to move on. Okay, so Christy's sticking around for weather. Anyone else? There were 4 people who voted. You can also just DM Caitlin as well if you don't want to be identified like publicly as sticking around for weather. and we'll get you into the breakout room that way. Okay. Caitlin, if you can. And Nicole, is that a thumbs up for weather?
Oh, it was to keep going. I didn't know what they were, so I just did thumbs up.
Okay. Okay, so Caitlin, you got Christine and Tiffany. And if you want to go into a breakout room with them, and then anyone else, if you want to keep working on weather and not chugging ahead, just shoot Caitlin a message and she can pull you into a breakout room.
So that's it, right?
Yep.
I don't have any messages, I don't think. I'm just double checking. Okay.
Once you get into the breakout room, you should still be able to see messages. So if there's anyone else who's like, oh my God, I can't take any more of Max, I need to work on weather, they can still DM you.
Yeah. If not, you can just let me know if you see anything.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then, okay, perfect. Never mind. They figured it out. Okay. And last chance, if anyone wants to not start work on the new project and wants to go work on weather instead, this new project is not going to be for homework. You're not going to miss anything major going on here, and it will be recorded on YouTube. So if you want to go work on weekend homework instead, just shoot me a message, and I can move you, or Caitlin a message, and we can move you into that breakout room. Okay, we are...
Move me.
You want to go over?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me... Okie doke. Nicole... Oh, I think the... Perfect. Okay, there we go. So, we are going to get started on a 30-second feedback form. And I'm sure you guys have never seen this form before, and so it's going to be a brand new interface for you. Largely just being sarcastic there. But we are going to recreate this 30-second feedback form. Now, I like to always start with my columns, right? Because thinking of everything in rows and columns visually makes it much easier for us to break that down in our code. So I'm going to take this... I'm going to just download it, and I think I've been using different tools. I used Keynote the other night. I'm going to just use Preview, which is an application built into the Mac. And if I go into the markup button, I can just grab a rectangle here, and that's already transparent, so I'm good to go. So I'm just going to drag this over, and I'm going to say, hey, flat out, there's my first row. And it's not really broken up into other columns, but I don't want to have rows mixed with regular divs that aren't rows. I'm going to run into some weird spacing things there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, there's my first row. Here's my second row. And it may look like that's an independent thing. That's an independent thing. But you notice this input is not full width. So I want to make that into a separate column. So I'm going to grab that here. And I'm going to say, hey, this whole thing, it looks like it's a 50% width. And so that's going to be a column 6. So now I'm going to keep going here. And I'm going to say, okay, we've got another row going on here. And we've got, let's break this up because this should probably be full width. But now we've got a giant row going on here. And we're going to break that up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a 7. And the main thing I want to get across here is all of these look like they're the same size. And this probably looks like it's a little bit bigger. So we should factor that into our column sizes and saying, hey, these 4 are probably equal width. And then this one's a little bit bigger and this one's a little bit bigger. And then I'm totally going to cheat and just grab, let me, nope. I'm going to totally cheat and just grab each of these individual boxes. Oh, preview, you are killing me. Why? Okay, so I'm holding in the shift key, and that's what's letting me grab these individual ones. And I should be able to just copy and move them all down to here. No, it's not pretty, but it's just given us a planning opportunity, right? And then let's keep going. We've got another question here. And that's going to be a row. We've got something going on up at the question. And then we're going to identify here, hey, because we want that spacing to be consistent, our box is going to be different than our answer. And I hope you guys are getting a general feel of that. So we won't go through and do the rest of them. The last one's kind of our submit, but this one's a full width. So hopefully that's helping with our div planning. And so when we go in, we can just start breaking all of those out. Okay, any questions
Max?
on that? Yeah.
Why on the one with the radio buttons, the stacked list, why do they necessarily have to be two different columns for the text and the button?
Yeah, you could do the button inline, but oftentimes keeping them in two different divs is going to make it easier to align them together. You could definitely do this in this is the question you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you definitely could put this all together, but sometimes you run into issues of the word sloth is going to be at the bottom of the button or at the top of the button. And when you want to get sloth right centered with the button, you run into issues sometimes of just saying like, come on, CSS, just center that vertically on the button, and it just won't do that. So making it as two separate divs allows those divs to be the same size and flex into the right height so that you can get it centered in that div.
Okay, thanks.
Great question. Any other questions on this?
Not so far.
Okay. All right, so we're going to dive in. I'm going to keep going in our day 4 folder. I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it a new file, and I'm going to call it feedback.html, and I'm going to say feedback style.css. I'm going to do my exclamation point enter, and that's going to autofill in my HTML. You're welcome to follow along, by the way, or because this isn't a homework assignment, you also don't feel like you need to. So whatever you're feeling, I'm gonna go a little bit faster than normal, but not like hyper speed. So if you are following along and fall behind at a certain point, just let me know and I can slow down and let everyone catch up. So I'm gonna call this feedback. And before I forget, I'm going to put a link in with an href to my feedback style.css. And that would be a really easy point to forget and link to this style sheet instead and be frustrated of why isn't my style sheet working? Just make sure you've got your right file name in here, right? Because we called it feedback style over here. And then we got to do our rel, and that's going to be a style sheet. And we can close that tag off. And then we also are going to be using Bootstrap for this, right? Because we want to use our grid, we want to have our styling in, we want to do all of that. So I'm going to go into my index.html and just borrow my Bootstrap link and dump it in. And another important thing is my Bootstrap link needs to be on top of my feedback.style. Now, that may not matter if we're not overriding any of the Bootstrap styles, but I want my CSS to always override the Bootstrap CSS in case I want to change something about the Bootstrap CSS. And if I have this feedback style on top here, it's not going to let me do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my browser, and I'm going to change index.html to feedback.html. And let me just throw an H1 in here that says hello. And my server is cranky with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop it and start it. There's my hello back in. So that appears to be working. And then if you're following along with me or want to see my browser live update, if you go to live share and the live server, if you double click on that, that will probably open up my weather page, and then up in the URL, just change it to feedback.html, and that should pop it open. And then same with the files. If you go into the window with the live share and go into the files, you should be able to pop open feedback.html and see that there. Okay, so let's get started. This to me actually looks like a card. Now we could style that all ourselves, but before I dive into that, I'm going to go to Bootstrap and go to their docs, and I want to look to see what components they have, and oh, look at that. Bootstrap has a little card for me. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to scroll through, and I just want to take a look at all the different card options they've had. They've got images up at the top. They have list groups. They call this the kitchen sink, which means it's got everything in it but the kitchen sink. So this is showing card links and list items and card titles. They've got ones with a header and a footer on them. But I don't think we really need the header footer option. So I'm just going to go up to the pretty basic one, which is this one. And I'm just going to take this as our starting point. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go in here. And because we're using Bootstrap, before we go too far down the rabbit hole, everything should be in a container when we use Bootstrap. That just makes Bootstrap happy, the grid system, for getting spacing right, getting margins right, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm going to put everything, I'm actually going to look at our markups. Because we don't need any columns here, I'm not even going to bother putting this in a row. We're just going to use a straight up card for that. So I'm going to dump in my card, and I'm going to look at my mockup, and it says 30-second feedback. That doesn't look quite as big as an H1 to me, but probably an H2. So we're going to change our card body here, and we are going to say 30-second feedback. And I'm going to go back to my browser. And all right, that's a pretty decent starting point, right? It doesn't quite look like my mockup, but let's see what's going on here. It looks like there's that purple going on at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, in addition to the card, I'm going to add an ID to that, and I'm going to call that top card. And I'm going to go back into my feedback style, and I'm going to look at my top card, and I'm going to add a border, but only to the top of it. And that border is going to be 5 pixels, it's going to be solid, and it's going to be purple. And I'm going to refresh, and that's a pretty decent starting point. Now, our mockup looks like it's a little narrower, but I think it's okay to leave it there. Now, if you notice, there's that like very faint purple, light purple going on in the background. That's going to add a lot to our design in terms of pulling it all together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say our container, which is holding, actually what we're going to do is we're going to target the body itself. Everything in the body is going to get a background color of light. We don't have a light purple. Okay, let's do this. Let's do purple and click on the little square there. And I should be able to just drag this to a lighter purple. That may look very ugly, but let's try that. That's very, very ugly. Okay, let's say light purple CSS. That is the exact color that I wanted. So I'm gonna scroll down. They're giving me the hex code right here. Now, there are a lot of different ways of representing color, and CSS supports several of them. So the hex code is the most common one. Hex meaning that it's not base 10, that it goes all the way up to base 16. And so when we get over a number over 10, we start using the letters A through F. So what the hex code breaks down to is the first two letters are the number of red. So 255 is being the most red, and then 0 being 0 red. So you can see this purple is a mix of red, green, and blue. And so this using numbers is the exact same representation of using this. So in CSS, we could copy this one or this one, and both would work exactly the same. So I'm going to just start with my hex color. I'm going to replace that with my RGB. And I'm going to come back into my code, and I think that's looking a lot better.
Max?
Yes.
Where did you say, if we want to follow your code for the live view, what is the link?
The link is the same one from earlier tonight in the live stream.
Okay.
It was sent at 5:52 p.m.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. And another thing that's bothering me, that's right up at the top. We never want our things straight up at the top of the page, right? So if I wanted more space between 30-second feedback and the border, I would use padding, right? Because padding, the box shows padding, border, and then margin. But because I want that whole card moved off of the top of the page, I'm using margin, because I want space outside of my top border, not inside the border and on the card itself. So I'm going to take my top card, and I'm going to say margin, and I only really want it on the top, and I'm going to say 15 pixels. And if we go back to our outline, it looks like they've got like a little divider row going down there, and then a space if we wanted to add a description. So I'm going to go back to my feedback. I'm going to add in a little HR, which is my header row. And we have that space in there, but if we look at the mockup, it looks like it's a pretty even space going on there, right? So all I need to do is add a little margin or padding to the bottom of that HR so that it's a little bit more level out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get fancy with my CSS selector. So instead of targeting the HR, because we could have multiple HRs on the screen, we can actually combine our CSS selectors here. So what I can do is I can say, go find the top card, and inside that top card, find the HR. And so we're using that arrow here, right? Which is a little different than the HTML syntax. But we're basically saying, hey, go find the element that we're looking for with the ID of top card, and then we're only going to apply the styling to the HR here. So VS Code is great. If you ever hover over a selector, it's going to give you the example HTML of what that CSS selector is targeting in the HTML. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say padding on the bottom is going to be, let's try 20 pixels to start. Okay, that didn't add a ton. Let's try 50 pixels. That still isn't doing anything. Okay, let's try margin instead of padding. And that's not doing anything for me. So I'm going to pop open the inspector tools. Don't worry, we're going to dive into this more later. And I'm going to fix a typo that I just noticed because that's going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, we just noticed that at the same time.
Going feedback. What is feedback? Okay. My top card. Okay, so here's the problem. When we use this arrow, it's saying the HR has to be the direct descendant. And when we say direct descendant, we're saying, hey, that HR has to be exactly one level below. So if we took this HR and actually put it right there, you notice we get that margin right away because our CSS selector actually is working. But because we've got another level of the card body involved, it's not working our CSS selector because top card has to go through card body to get down to our HR. So what we need to do is we could modify this selector and say, hey, go to top card and apply it to any HR in the top card, which now that selector's working. Or we could say top card, go through the card body, and then you'll find the HR. And that also fixes our problem. So it just depends how you want to write this CSS selector, right? If you want it to only apply to top card and only in the card body and then go apply it to the HR, we can write it like this. Or if we wanted to say, hey, go apply it to any HR anywhere in the ID top card, we could just write it without that arrow selector, and that's what's going to apply it to any HR anywhere within top card. Does that make sense?
Max, could you just have moved the HR one level below that div that was surrounding the H2?
You absolutely could. The reason I didn't is because I'm not sure what kind of so this is a very slight difference. If the card body that Bootstrap is providing for us actually has a little padding built into it. So you notice this 30-second feedback isn't right against the card. That's because the card body actually has some padding around it that's pushing the content in. So when I move the HR outside of that card body, it's now going right up to the edge of the card. But if we take it and we move it back inside the card body, you notice it's sticking out a little bit from the edge. Now, in our original design, it does go all the way to the edge. So maybe you're right in thinking it should be outside of the card body. I actually kind of like it a little bit more inset. I prefer it in the card body, but that's a design choice that, you could make either way.
I like the way it looks in better. I was just wondering if you moved it out, it would remove that extra. Would it have removed that extra level of descendancy?
You are totally right. Yep. Okay, and it looks like I just want to fiddle with that. Maybe 40 pixels is going to make it look pretty balanced. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to take a... Yep. I was just going to say, Zach, I'm going to take a second and let anyone catch up. What question do you have for me?
Steph and I are both having the same problem. Ours isn't purple.
Okay. Go ahead and... Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And I don't see any differences between my code and your code.
Okay, let me see your CSS. Top card body.
Oh.
Refresh in your browser for me.
Nothing.
Is the hashtag?
Where? Which one?
You said hashtag feedback style. Get rid of the hashtag.
Oh yeah.
The file name?
Yeah, your file name shouldn't have a hashtag at the beginning of it. Good catch.
Maybe. Oh, I did the same thing.
Okay, that's probably why. Let me save it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's got it. Thank you.
Good work. Awesome. We ready to keep going? Any other questions? Cool. All right, let's go back to our mock-up. All right, so next thing, we've got a your name going on, leave if you'd like to say anonymous, and then a form input going on there. So I am going to skew from this styling a little bit. This is using a design style called material design, and it's often considered the successor to the Bootstrap design that it uses. So we're going to use Bootstrap classes instead and use model after their form inputs just so we get practice with components. Although if we wanted to, we could totally build this component from scratch or use a different design framework like Bootstrap. A very popular one is called Material UI. So we're going to just skew from this a little bit. But I'm going to come in and I notice that we've got one card already working. So I'm just going to take this entire card. I'm going to make sure my indentation's lining up. I'm going to take these two divs. I'm going to come in. I'm going to make sure my div is closing here, so my indentation is off. That should be over here. That's lining up. That should be here. That should be here. And because I created two opening divs, I want to get my two closing divs in before we do anything else. So I'm going to do my closing div here, make sure my indentation's lining up, and I've got some styling on that card that I don't want there anymore. Well, that's because we're breaking a rule. We're using this ID twice, and this second card is no longer the top card. So I'm just going to take that ID off completely. And now we run into another issue of, all right, that card is right on top of the other card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new class, because I'm going to want to use this on all of my cards that aren't the top one. And I'm going to say that is now called a question card. So I'm going to add that class on. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go to my feedback style. I'm going to create a new class called question card. And I'm just going to give it some breathing room. Now, I'm not using padding because I don't want it to affect inside the card. I'm using margin because I want it to affect the spacing between the cards. So I'm going to say margin top is 10 pixels and the margin on the bottom is going to be 15 pixels. Sorry. And I'm going to remember to save my HTML file. And now we've got a little breathing room going on there. Okay, so our question comes in next. And that looks like a little bit bigger than the paragraph text that's going to be on the page. So let's just see. It looks like just slightly bigger. So let's try it with an H6 and say, what is your name? And we can come back to the feedback. That looks pretty good to me. Let's see what the P tag looks like underneath this. You can leave this blank if you'd like to stay anonymous.
Hey Max, can you share your screen?
Oh my god. I can't believe I wasn't sharing my screen. Sorry. Okay, so I've got a P tag going on here, an H6, and you know, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look quite the way I want it to. So let's go back to the preview. And if I'm going to zoom in here. And I think it's just a spacing thing, right? It looks like, well, let's get our input in there, and then once we get that whole card done, maybe it will be a little bit easier to see what's going on. But from our planning, we realized that your answer does not span the full width of the card, right? It's constrained into a 6. So I'm going to come in after my P tag, and I'm going to do my div class equals row. And I'm going to do my div class equals col6. Okay, and now I want to go get my input. So we could totally come in here, just add an input tag, say that it's a type equals text, and get our input, but that looks pretty ugly to me. So instead, what we're going to do is go back to the Bootstrap documentation. We're going to go to, I believe it is under Forms and Overview. And I'm going to scroll through, and I'm going to see they've got a nice input here going on. So I'm just going to take a quick look, see if they've got any other components. Nope. We're going to just use that one. So I'm going to go grab this input. And I'm going to drop that in instead of the input I'm using. And we don't really need an ID on this because we're not going to target the styling. And this area tag is for screen reader accessibility. Super important, but an entire different day's class to talk about accessibility and making it screen reader accessible. And we actually have a graduate who is an expert in accessibility. So hopefully we'll be able to bring them in as a guest speaker. And then the last thing we need to do is change the type. We don't want it to be a type email. We want it just to be a type text. And let's go back here. All right, that's looking decent to me. Let's pull it up next to our mockup and see what's going on. All right, so your answer is there, but we don't want your answer to be the value of that. That is going to use a special property called a placeholder. And so that's just an HTML attribute that we can add to the element, and we can say your answer. And there it is. Okay, let's compare that to our preview. It looks like this text is just a smidge smaller compared to ours. Let me see if I can space things out a little bit better here. Okay, so this text looks to be a smidge smaller, and it looks like there's a bigger gap on that. So what I'm going to do is, instead of targeting all the p tags across my entire site, maybe let's only target p tags that are in the question card. So I'm going to go to my CSS, I'm going to target my question card, and I'm going to target p tags anywhere that is anywhere in a question card. And I'm going to set my text size down to, let's try 10 pixels. And then I'm just going to make sure that there's a little more breathing room at the bottom of it. So font size is font size. Maybe just a little too tiny. Let's go up to 12 pixels and compare it to... Looks good to me. What do you guys think? You want to keep fiddling, or you want to move on to the next one?
I'm trying to catch up, but I'll be there.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Good point. This is probably a good break point. So let's just take a moment and let everyone catch up.
Thank you.
You know, I'm going to launch a poll just so I've got an idea of who's following along and who's just going on for the ride, which at this point on a Thursday, with everything we have done, I do not blame you for just wanting to watch along. Okay, here we go.
I can't get the color on my page.
Go ahead and share your screen. Okay, your file name doesn't have a dash in it, but your HTML link to it does. So your file name is feedback style without a dash .css. And if you go back to your feedback.html, your file here's got that dash in the middle of it. So just go ahead and take out that dash and save and hop it back to your browser. Purple.
Awesome. Idiot. I'm an idiot.
I'm getting stuck because like my it's like the divs just don't ever match up. Like I'm looking at your code right now and I've done everything. I didn't copy anything. But like, for example, I'm looking at your code and I'm looking at the lines where all the divs match up, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. I only have 5 lines, but I have all the divs in there.
All right, go ahead and share your screen. Let's see what we can find.
Okay, 1 second. Oh, let me get this out of here.
Well, you can't be that far off if your thing's looking like that. Okay, so
okay.
So your indentation's off somewhere, and I know that because you see how this, and then if we go back over the size of that step, and then same here, if we come here and we go over and that size step matches, what doesn't match is this step up to this little step. And so that to me makes me think that it's something wrong there. But your entire this entire section all the way down to here is not indented enough. So that container here only has one tiny little step over. So what you should do is delete that space on line 14. And then tab once. And then, oh, maybe it's your container that's off. Try putting your cursor on 13. Yep, delete. And tab once. Okay, now they're lining up. So if you do 14 all the way down to 32. Yeah, you got it. That's a... So, but you want to take 14 all the way down to 19 at least and tab that in one more level.
Okay. So tab this in one more time and then same here. But this is closing it.
So 14 needs to go one more level deep.
Oh, 14, okay.
Yep, because you've got two divs opening there. And then 15 has to go another level deep. And then your H2, yep, H2, HR, and 18 all need to go in. One more on that one. Okay. Now that's lining up. Now we get to see divs line up. Your div closes out there. So that's your top card. You're good there. Now, if you take 20 and go all the way down to 32, so just highlight all of those lines and hit tab on them, that's going to move them all over at once for you. So H6, your P's good. Row, col 6, close the div, close the div, close that div, that closes that div. Now this div, you can move over one step.
This one?
Yep. To the, I'm sorry, other way. Okay. Yeah. Now, I think all of your divs are lining up. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're saying I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 closing divs as well.
Yeah, these divs don't like me. It's crazy.
So just an indentation issue there, but you've got all the divs lining up properly.
Okay. And then with my with the result, there's a few things I need to change, like just some of the grammar, but
yep.
Just double check this.
That looks good. Yeah, you should be pretty close to caught up.
Okay. Shouldn't this be smaller though? Like I could be wrong, but when I looked at yours, it was like a little bit smaller.
That's just because I have my window shrunk down.
Oh, okay.
Because it's gonna be 50% of the screen size. So if you go a lot smaller on it, then yours is gonna be smaller as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Let's do one final push tonight. Let's just try and get our how well did you get the topics tonight? Very apt question to add. Let's try and get that maybe just started a little bit so we can get the layout done. We may not get all the individual styling, but at least we can play around with our grid system a little bit more on that. So let me share my screen before Zach can remind me to. Okay. How well did you get the topics tonight? And then we've got all of these radio buttons going on. So We can reuse most of our HTML here. I'm going to take my entire question card, and because my indentation is lining up, I know that if I follow this line down, this is going to be my closing div. But if I'm ever not sure, I can click anywhere in the closing div or the opening div, and it's going to highlight in that like light gray for me to let me know, hey, this div is matching this div. And if I'm ever really not sure, I can go up to this parent div and say, hey, I'm right there. I'm looking to be inside my container. So I'm going to take my entire card. I'm going to duplicate it. And because we thought ahead and put question card with margin top and bottom on it, when I come over here, I get my nice spacing that's now consistent for me. So I'm going to pull this over and I'm going to say, how well did you get the topics tonight? And I can delete out my whole p tag because I don't have a p tag going on that justification, right? That description. But in my row, I know that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we identified that these two are a little bigger than the rest of them. So let's try. Now this may blow back on me terribly. Let's try making this a col 2 and saying terrible. And we're going to take that and duplicate it again and say excellent. And then for all the other ones, we're going to just say, hey, they're going to be a generic column. And because we aren't specifying a size, it's going to auto size all of them together for us. And then in here, I'm going to use another input, and let's go look at checks and radios. And checkboxes, indeterminates, which means they may have something between yes and no. Disabled, and radios. And that radio is what I want. So I'm going to just take this input, and all I really need is that form check input, I believe. So I'm going to just drop that in here and close out my tag. And let's just see what it looks like. There's my little radio button, and if I click it, it looks like it's nice and styled and not the default one. So I'm going to take these and just go, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Come over. All right, we got some work to do here, but the content is showing up the way we want, right? Now, I want this text to show up over on the right-hand side of the column, and then everything in here to be centered, and then this is going to stay on the left, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my text end to my terrible, and then I'm going to go through and add my text centered to all of my radio buttons. All right, we're getting there. That's closer to what we want. Let's go back to our preview. Okay, I missed something. I missed the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top, right? So we want those to be in our columns. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we're gonna add line breaks to those. I may regret that and want to put those in divs so we can target it, but let's see where this gets us to start. Okay, in the right area, we need some space underneath R1 through R5 between our radio buttons. So I think I am going to regret that. I am going to want to put these in a div, and I'm going to call this score. And let's just rip those through. Oh, can you tell I'm tired? 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now we can go into our scores and throw some margin bottom on them. Now padding would do the same thing here because we're not working with a border. And let's just put them down. Let's try 15 pixels to start. Okay, we're getting there. Let's try 25. All right, now we need to get our terrible and our excellent to line up at the bottom instead of lining up at the top. So I want to go into, let's check in text first. And text alignment, text end is going to be left to right, I believe. I may need to be in layout as opposed to text. Position, horizontal. For the vertical, so vertical bottom position. Let's see if we can get that to work. So center. What I'm actually going to do is let you guys catch up. Give me 1 minute to scroll through this documentation and see what I can find. Okay, so I think what we want to do here is use the flex, because what we're doing is we're saying, hey, these all line up at the top, and this is kind of what we want. We want it to do it at the bottom, right? So if I take this align items end, let's see if we can get that to go down there. Let's try align items end. This is one that I might not be able to do live during class. If I deflex that, can I get it to go down there? Oh! Did not think that was going to work. Okay. So what I did is I added deflex, which is a special bootstrap class that is saying, hey, we want to position this using flex. And what we're saying is align the items at the end. So basically use, you see when we do align items start, that's lining up with this one up here. And then when we do align items end, that's what's putting it down at the bottom here. So I can take that and apply that to our excellent as well. And that also got that to line up. But we did break something that terrible is now over on the left, and we want that on the right to line up here. So we've got to figure that one out as well. I wonder if, can we flip these two? Nope. See what's going on with that. Line items, it's doing that. Line self end. Well, I think we hit a good stopping point for the evening. I will figure out how to get that to go to the end. And then I will share the code in the live stream channel. Nope, just kidding. Figured it out. Okay. So text end doesn't play particularly well with all of the flex. So there are basically two different ways we can lay out content. We can do the text end, but the problem is that when we layer flex on top of that, flex is just a much more powerful layout engine, but it doesn't let us use both at the same time. So when I was in the in the Flex documentation, I saw this justify content end. And so what we're basically doing is splitting it out in two. We're saying like this align items end is saying, hey, take the whole container and put it at the bottom. But then inside of the container, we can use this class called justify content. So this align items end is taking the whole thing and putting it horizontally at the bottom. And then the justify content end is saying, but within that box, put it over to the right. So the oversimplification of this is what's moving it down horizontally. And then the justify content end is what's pushing it over to the right. And so what we end up with is this. And then I think, you know, little styling things of it looks like there's a little gap between the question and the radio buttons. So we could come in here, grab our row and say, this is going to be a radio row. And go into our feedback style, add another class and say our margin at the top is going to be 20 pixels. And it's going to spite me radio row, semicolon, 40 pixels. There we go. And that just added a little space. And then maybe we even want a little space towards the bottom of that. So let's do margin bottom and do 20 pixels on that. Looks good to me. Oh, you guys are back. We made another website while you were gone. All right. I'm going to stop here, leave the last 5 minutes for anyone to catch up. How are we feeling about this?
Quick question. So I can't get my I can't get the boxes in what's your name and the other one below
that. Go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
So when I go over here. Sorry.
Okay, so we've got our card body, our closing div. Okay, and then we do another card body row. Scroll.
Sorry.
You're fine. Scroll up just a little bit for me. Okay, so you've got your bootstrap in.
Is this supposed to be reference or rel?
Oh, you know what? It's supposed to be rel, but you're missing your closing tag after the rel. Save that and save your feedback style.css and let's see what that does. Okay, so I think we're missing. Oh, you know what? You've got the last closing tag.
Mm-hmm.
You have a class on a closing tag, and closing tags never get classes. So scroll down towards the bottom. Line 32.
Oh, yeah. What's that on there?
And that is closing your container. Your card body. Div closes div, div closes div. Oh, you've got line 20. Yep. That should be an opening tag. There you go. Try that.
There we go.
Good work.
All right.
All right. Any other questions for tonight? I'll stick around a couple minutes after 8:30. If you guys were in the other breakout room, we just created a recreation of the 30-second feedback form. If you get caught up on the weather assignment and want to rewatch this part of the video and try and follow along and see how we created things, it's probably going to be good practice. I'm not sure if we're going to start here next week or if we're going to start on another project. Might be good for us to finish this off next week, but we'll make that decision over the weekend. I am going to just check the office hours form really quickly and see if I can give you a time on that.
Were you gonna give us an answer on the poll, or?
Yeah, let me check to see how many people responded on that as well. Okay, so tomorrow at 5:30 is the time that works best for most people for office hours. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. And I'm not sure if you guys get an email for scheduling that, but office hours in this link tomorrow at 5:30. And then I am also going to look at... So we've got a 60-40 split so far with 10 students responding, so it could change, but 60% are saying continue every other week in person, so continue on the initial plan, and then we've got 40% saying go fully virtual. So we will probably continue to do in person, which means next week on Monday will be in person. If you are running into problems with being in person, feel free to reach out to me. Being in person is strongly encouraged, but because I am hybrid, I have no grounds to stand on to make you go in person as well. So, while we strongly encourage you to go in person and we're paying for the space in person, if you would like to continue to be remote, that is also fine. We did upgrade our conference room microphone again based off of last week, so we should be able to hear you even better in person next week. But we'll be testing that system out on Monday, so we'll plan to keep it as is, unless there's a huge influx of votes, and at that point we can assess from there. Masking policy had the same votes of 40% requiring students to wear a mask and 60% to continue masking but not require it, to continue encourage it. So yeah, we will stay on with the status quo and plan to be in person again next week. But again, if there are any problems with you being in person, just shoot me a message and we can figure out how to make it work out to continue to be virtual.
Let's add a quick question about the homework.
Yep.
We just basically had to do something like make another row, 2 rows that are responsive.
Yeah, so just for one of those rows, making sure that you use like a col MD6 and then like a col XS12.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
I would say good night.
Okay. We are all set. I will hopefully see most of you tomorrow at office hours. Office hours are always optional and not required. But hopefully I get to see you guys tomorrow at 5:30. Bring your questions. And I'm going to stick around here. I'm going to stop the recording.